One of the most important group of people that will affect your child's life, that group is called friends. I know that we all have friends. We all had friends as kids, when we were in school, when we were in elementary school and whatnot. So we know how that goes. And they also say, show me your friends and I will show you who you are. So friends are very important. We need friends. Of course you need friends. We're social human beings, so we need friends. However, when your kids are young, in as much as yes, they will have friends, I also feel that you need to make sure that the friends that they have are good friends. You can't just assume that because they're friends that they're all good. No, they're not all good, and this is from my experience. And because we have 4 kids, trust me, we have had to go through so many different kinds of friends. Sometimes we got accused, or let me just be precise, I got accused of wanting to be in control of who their friends are and all that. But it wasn't that at all. It was just that, at that age, there are certain things that you will see as a parent, but they won't see them. They'll see everything as harmless, whereas you can see beyond that. And so when your children have friends, I think it's necessary for you to know who these friends are, and perhaps if it's possible, just meet their parents. Because if you're really serious about values and family values, you need to make sure that the friends that your children have come from families that share the same values as you. For instance, I remember one of my kids had a friend who, she was new to the school and she seemed really nice and she was willing to make friends because, of course, because she was new, she didn't have any friends. So my daughter, who was a very friendly child, was her friend. But I could see certain things in the girl's behavior that she just did not see. And eventually she did see. And just to think of the times that she had gone to spend days at the house, she was invited to parties and whatnot. It was only afterwards that she told me some of the things that were said and some of the things that they were doing. It's amazing because some parents or some families don't really see anything wrong with drinking as teenagers. The drinking age in this country is 21 years old, which in my opinion, I think is too old. I think that if you can drive at 16, at least you should be able to drink at 18. And I think that in reality, most kids don't wait until they're 21 before they drink. And what happens is that you have kids who have been denied of trying this thing called alcohol, and they get so excited about it, they think it's something else. And of course they overdo it. And they don't have any idea as to how to handle themselves when they're drinking. I personally think that you should drink before you drive, because I feel that by the time you should be able to drive, or you should be allowed to drive, that you should have been able to drink long enough for you to be able to handle alcohol, or to at least determine how much you can tolerate in terms of your alcohol consumption. So those are some of the things. And eventually it turned out that this girl was drinking, she was getting into all kinds of things, and they were all justified, and if you don't agree with that, then your child now has a friend who comes from a family that believes that there's nothing wrong with teenage drinking. They might agree with me and think that waiting until you're 21 before you drink is too old, and therefore encourage the children to start drinking early. I don't want my kids to break the law. So if that's the law of the land, that's the law of the land. And I certainly do not want them to engage in any activities that might be seen or deemed as illegal just because their friends are doing it. And sometimes it's not just the friends, it's also the environment that they're in. If you're in an environment where such things are overlooked, I've heard people say, well, they're all drinking and whatnot. Those are all Those are all issues that you need to be aware of. So the friends that your child makes while they're in school or while they're in college makes a lot of difference. So don't ignore those friends that your children have. On the other hand, your child could also have friends who are very progressive. I remember one of my kids, she had this girl who was a friend, and through that girl, there were so many things that she found that she could do in order to enhance her ability to do what she wanted to do in the future. She had a friend who was into basketball, and my child ended up doing so well in basketball. She had a friend who was getting this tutoring to the point that she was able to get ahead in some of the classes. So there are some good friends and there are some bad friends. So what I suggest is but if your children have friends, invite them, make sure you know who these friends are, kind of interact with them in an appropriate manner as an adult would approach a child. Get to know the parents, have a chat. Sometimes that tells you a little bit more than what you will even get from the child. This same girl, I was talking to her mom, the girl that I mentioned earlier on that was new to the school, and I could smell the fact that she was drinking. And I was concerned because this was a family event at school and she was stinking. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, this girl was my child's friend. And as a matter of fact, they carpooled when they were doing these rotations. And sometimes her mom would take them to school. And it was only, I'm sorry, not to school, but to the places where they were doing the rotations. And it was only afterwards that she told me, sometimes she drove like she veered off the road and all that. And I was absolutely horrified that that was where my child was. And I did not pay attention at the time because I assumed that the girl was good. You kind of think that your children will do exactly the same thing that you did, but no, you have to have a look and just make sure that everything is okay. Now, I'm not saying that you should choose your child's friends or anything like that. What I'm saying is just ask a few questions, find out what their parents did for a living, and what do they do in their spare time? Do they play any sport? Do they have any extracurricular activities? Think about what these other kids are doing and think about whether or not your child can participate in those activities. Go along whenever you can. I know it's so difficult because we're very pressured. I remember when my kids were growing up, I was working and I missed so many things. And that's part of the reason why I started this channel called Sharing Lives with IJ, because there's so many things that I miss and I look back and I wish I knew better then. And I certainly do not want anyone who has the opportunity to avoid those issues to end up not being able to avoid them when there are people who can volunteer their opinions. And that's the reason why there is Sharing Lives with IJ. I hope you have found this helpful. Subscribe to the channel, like the video if you feel that it helped you, and I'll see you again in the next video. Goodbye.